Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 869 for the 1st of June. The 1st of June. Year is approaching halfway over. 2025, Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia, where the weather is cooler this time of the year. Coming up on this week's show, my report and field report from Armidale, New South Wales, up in the New England area, wonderfully beautiful area. Tim Mendham and I joined the train here in Sydney, travelled about 8 hours to Armidale, and had a wonderful couple of days up there, where I gave a talk at their local skeptics in the pub. Now, I think it's been something in the order of 40 years since I've been to that city, Armidale, and it was great to be back again, although briefly, and we are very pleased to see the enthusiasm of the local skeptics. Anyway, report coming up at the top of the show. Following that, I catch up with two very dear friends of mine, Ben Radford and Celestia Ward from the Squaring the Strange podcast. And indeed, it's a bit of a reciprocal thing because not only did I interview them briefly, that they interviewed me for their podcast, and I think my appearance will be coming up in the next few weeks. Following that, it's the final of Psychic Penny's horoscopes. Well, for the time being anyway. This week, Psychic Penny gives her insights and her prognostications for Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces. Then to round off the show, the Trove section, the digitized newspapers, looking at our history in print, looks at the antics of Rex Gilroy, the late Rex Gilroy, who was known as Australia's famed cryptid hunter. Yowies, big cats, sea monsters, that sort of thing. No matter where you are around the world, maybe you're just relaxing, enjoying some mild weather and looking at some gorgeous trees. Well, in Australia, gorgeous trees in the autumn with beautiful red and yellow leaves. I hope you don't get too many on your back deck. And having a cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, it's time for me to run downstairs and have a cup of tea. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Now, in the past week, Tim Mendham and I had the pleasure of travelling up to the regional city of Armidale, some 8 hours away or so, on a train. Yes, we caught the train in the morning on Tuesday, travelled all day to Armidale, passing lots of flooded areas, I should say. Because as some of you may know, recently parts of New South Wales have had severe flooding. We were met at the train station at Armidale by Amelia and Brian Wilmer, our hosts for the couple of days we were there. After Tim and I checked into our hotel room, we joined Amelia and Brian for a lovely dinner in the nearby club. Bright and early the next morning, Tim Mendham and I had a mission. We had to find some props to use in the water divining demonstration as part of my talk. That was to be that evening. After scouring various stores like the local Kmart, we finally ended up in the reject shop and found buckets. Black plastic buckets for $2 each. So I bought 6 of those and labelled them for that evening's entertainment. The rest of the day was spent touring the local area with Amelia and Brian, and then we were given a special guided tour of part of the University of New England, and that is Booloomimba House. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Here's some spelling for you. Booloomibah. With a special thanks to Kath Brazier, who was our tour guide. An historic rambling mansion now used as the administration block for the University of New England. Now, I must mention that during the day we had a wonderful lunch, of course, with Nikki and Jeff Croft. Big shout out to you. And we were at a place called Uralla. Now, this is famous because in the area there, in the 1860s, there was a famous bushranger or outlaw called Captain Thunderbolt. Now, Captain Thunderbolt, whose name was Frederick Ward, even has a statue dedicated to him in the main street of Uralla. Briefly, he was the son, and thank you, Wiki, he was the son of a convict, Michael Ward, and born around about 1835. And during his career as an outlaw or a highwayman or a bushranger, it says here he would rob mailmen, travellers, inns, stores and stations across much of northern New South Wales. Things did catch up with him on the 25th of May after allegedly robbing travellers near the Big Rock. Ward, or Captain Thunderbolt, was shot and killed by a police constable, Walker, at Kentucky Creek near Uralla, near where we were having our lunch. His capture and death followed a difficult pursuit of several miles through rough terrain, and I was told by our hosts that his body was paraded down the main street on a tabletop. In fact, it says here, hundreds flocked to see the body, and a large sum was raised by the local community as a gesture of appreciation for Constable Walker. Well, there you go. And indeed, the wiki page has a picture here of the statue, which Tim and I were looking at on our trip. And it just goes to remind us all that Australia has such a rich history when we think about the early days of settlement, and it was sort of like the Wild West in many places. However, I digress. After a splendid day of sightseeing and a fine lunch, Tim and I rested up, and then we headed for the Welder's Dog Brewery, where we set up for the evening's talk. And as I was running around making sure the projector worked and lining up my divining rods and making sure my spoons for bending were ready to go, people were filling up, and indeed we ended up with roughly 70 people, which was a wonderful turnout, including people who had travelled from some distance to see my talk, and I was very pleased to meet them. In the lead up to the evening's entertainment, I caught up with Tim Mendham. The Welder's Dog, Tim Mendham. We are in a place called the Welder's Dog in the New England city of Armidale, and it's not.
We're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, we were, but they kicked us out. We're here, and it's Skeptics in the Pub, the local Skeptics in the Pub, and you were here for the very first one about a year ago, weren't you?
Absolutely right, actually. Yeah, it was a great event, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger every month. Actually, it's fantastic.
This is a brewery. We're actually in a brewery. I'm giving a talk in about an hour about the secrets of the psychics, and already the place is filling up. This is quite gratifying.
It is nice to have an audience, and they haven't left yet.
Well, they're all here because they thought the football was on tonight, not my talk. No, we're here at the invitation of Amelia Wilmer, the local coordinator for Armidale Skeptics in the Pub. And it should be a great night. We've got the water divining buckets all ready to go. I brought lots of spoons. People are carrying tables. It's an interesting sight.
We've got lots of beer we can draw from because it's a brewery.
We do. It's a brewery. Maybe we can divine for beer.
I think we can. I'm sure we could find some if you look. Yeah. No, it looks excellent actually. They're well set up. It looks like a great venue. Very noisy, obviously.
Very noisy.
Very noisy. Nice concrete floor that people are dragging chairs over. But I mean, it's a pretty good venue actually, and they got pizzas.
Pizzas are everywhere. Pizzas are everywhere.
They specialise in pizzas here, actually, apparently. So, yeah, so it's worth a trip up, wasn't it?
Yes, it was 8 hours on the train.
Yes, 8 hours.
But that's okay.
Well, it would have been fine if except the person I was sitting beside.
And me too.
I know. We both had problems with the person we were sitting beside, I know. But, no, that was nice enough. Actually, it's pretty good.
So let's hope for a good evening.
Yeah.
I also took the opportunity to interview our host, Amelia Wilmer. Amelia Wilmer, you are the coordinator, the head honcho of the Armidale Skeptics in the Pub, is that right?
Technically, I'm the convener.
Okay.
I'll take head honcho.
How long has it been going now?
We've been going now, this is 14 months. So we had our first birthday in April. So.
Tim Mendham was here at your very first event.
Yeah, we invited Tim up to launch it because that, as a brand new event, it had to be something people could trust and have credibility in. And so getting Tim up to do it, it was the imprimatur of Australian Skeptics Incorporated, and stressing that we are affiliated with them and all their goals and objectives about critical thinking, reasoning, logic and the scientific method, which is sadly lacking in our society.
It certainly is. And I had a wonderful tour with you today, and you were mentioning the social aspect here in Armidale is quite something, isn't it? People are involved with lots of things.
This is a very engaged little city. I've often said it's got intellectual heft. You've got a university, you've got a conservatorium, you've got a beautiful art museum. It's a very cultivated city full of educated, well-travelled people. So it's a sophisticated audience who really appreciate, critical thinking. Yeah. And of course that means that I've got a talent pool extraordinaire to select speakers from, although none as good as you, of course.
Well, what can I say? And we were just, it occurred to us coming here, but tonight at the same time I'm speaking, there's a big football match on the TV.
Yes, we're up against State of Origin, and I still think there are more people to come yet. A lot of people don't arrive until just before you're on. They know it doesn't start till 7.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so...
Well, I mean, the place is what, 3/4 at the moment? Almost, something like that?
about 50 people here. Our biggest crowd's been 116. But the average...
As we speak, there are more people coming in the door. Look at
see
that.
this happen right up till 7 o'clock, when you're starting, they'll probably all be still coming in.
That's right, yes.
They're the cheapskates. But one of the things I love about this is what we're seeing, people talking face to face to each other, communicating, having fun. Because one of the other aims I've got is, one of the scourges of modern life is loneliness. We are all too stuck on our screens, too remote from everybody, and it's so easy to go for a week and not speak to anybody, including uni students in their sort of remote world, and everything's virtual. So one of the happiest things for me is seeing this. People laughing, talking, sharing food together.
Yes.
And then to enjoy the intellectual challenge of whatever the speaker's going to present to them. I say, come and have a drink and a think. And that's what we aim to do.
Well, I've had a few people come up to me already to ask me about water divining, which is...
That subject here, especially in sheep country, they are gagging to hear your presentation on it. Everybody wishes it worked, especially in drought, but I think they want to see for themselves how you're going to explain how we all get deluded about it.
Yes, well, at the moment, this area, a lot of New South Wales have had too much water.
Well, New South Wales has had too much, but you've got parts of Victoria which are absolutely parched. So the Dorothea McKellar poem sort of...
it just crossed my mind, droughts and flooding rains.
That's it. She was right on the money. So, yeah, so I think I've seen a few people here who've come off large properties and they're retired into Armidale. And that's a common demographic here. So, yeah, you've got a very avid audience tonight.
All right, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm interested to see what the reactions to the water divining will be.
Love it. They're going to love it.
After my presentation was over, Tim Mendham got up to speak about the skeptics in general and our appreciation for the local skeptics in the pub. Well, the night is over, and so is my voice.
Oh, yeah, I know. I saw it walking out the door, actually.
Yeah. Well, it was great. I don't know whether it was 70 people turn up, something.
About 70, about 70, yeah.
And they laughed and they gasped at the spoons bending, and I think that was a very successful night.
I thought it was very good. They were stunned, definitely stunned.
They're stunned, yeah.
They were stunned, but yeah, because you covered a lot in the presentation. For the people who weren't there, Richard covered spoon bending and water divining and psychic powers and optical illusions, and what else did you cover? A hell of a lot of stuff.
Psychic predictions.
Psychic predictions was good. A panoply of skeptical.
But we had the big water divining test, and members of the audience were divining for water.
Good. That went down very
and
well.
people were laughing. So yeah, I think a great night, and kudos to the local organisers here at Armidale Skeptics in the Pub.
Yep. Sort of best wishes to Amelia and Brian, and for anyone in the area, or if you're from Tamworth to Armidale to further up, come along for their monthly meetings.
A big thank you to Amelia Wilmer and Brian Wilmer for being our hosts and driving us around the local area, making sure everything was all right. And Amelia, indeed, she has sent me something here from the University of New England Pulse newsletter. And if I scroll down, here's the story. Skeptics in the pub. Skeptics attracts fans from Kempsey, Guyra and Tamworth. Among the audience of 70 at Skeptics in the pub on Wednesday were visitors from Kempsey, Guyra and Tamworth who travelled especially to Armidale to hear renowned Australian skeptic Richard Saunders. The next Skeptics in the pub is on Wednesday, June 18 at the Welder's Dog. So if you're in the New England area and you can get to Armidale, turn up at Skeptics in the Pub on Wednesday, June 18. It was a wonderful evening. Lots of nice local beer, nice pizza, and a good time was had by all.
Hi, I'm Leslie Rosenblood, host of Podcast for Inquiry, the official podcast of the Centre for Inquiry Canada. Every 2 weeks, I bring you a conversation with an expert on some complex subject, which we discuss with intelligence and nuance. The goal is that you come away with more than just a surface-level understanding, as well as an appreciation for a genuine spirit of inquiry. If your intellectual curiosity extends to science, religion, philosophy, economics, humanism, politics, and more, subscribe to Podcast for Inquiry today, available anywhere you get your podcasts. A video form is also available on YouTube on the Centre for Inquiry Canada's channel. I look forward to welcoming you to the inquiring community.
And joining me now on the line all the way from beautiful Las Vegas and beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico, the hosts of Squaring the Strange, Celestia Ward and Ben Radford. Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going, Richard?
Hello.
Hi. It's been a little while. It's been a little while since we've caught up for our Skeptic Zone listeners with Squaring the Strange. And I know things have changed a bit. Can you give me an overview of what's happening on the show?
Well, Pasquale was abducted by aliens, dragged off by chupacabras.
No. That's how rumor starts, Celestia. Come on.
Okay, all right. Well, we've just Pasquale sadly has had a lot of demands on his time, and so he sort of slowly became an on again, off again host, and then mostly off again, and so now officially we kind of made the decision, and Pasquale backed away and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't have room for it in my life." But luckily, Ben and I don't have lives. So we are both,
but true.
We are both full-time co-hosts of Squaring the Strange now.
Well, let's pay tribute because for many years, he did great work on Squaring the Strange. I met him. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was visiting Ben. He's done stuff for me occasionally, which I was very grateful for. So full marks to Pasquale for dedicating all that time and interesting content. He made a very strong contribution to what we do.
Now that he's renounced skeptical podcasting, he's in more demand than ever. I think I ought to quit.
You know what? If you quit, then I'll quit too.
Oh no, Richard! It'll all be up to you. You'll have to skeptically podcast for another 20 years at least.
Well, I was planning on 30, but if you only want me to do 20,
he's aiming for another Lifetime Achievement Award, which I don't think you can actually do. I think that's technically wrong.
I think in my next life.
It'll be an Lifetime Achievement Award.
It will. Now, the exciting news is, of course, in a little over a month, we're all going to be on the high seas being lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, yes. I hope neither of you get seasick. I know I do occasionally. But if we're talking about psychics and swindlers and scams, I'll have another reason to feel seasick. But I'm sure Brian Dunning has got a lot of things planned. Are you giving a talk, either one of you? What are you speaking on?
I'm talking about Ben Radford, in fact.
I'm talking about Richard.
Yes, I'm giving a talk about sea monsters. Ooh. Because but it's going to be a mini skeptical convention on the high seas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be so many skeptical podcasts there. We'll have to do a giant podcasting session, all of us together, I think. It's now I'm talking about sea monsters. There's lots of people lined up to speak on the day where there's lots of talks, and the rest of the time we'll be looking for vortexes and UFOs, I think. Vortices?
I'm going to bring my FLIR camera and see if I can find any ghosts on the ship. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
No, very exciting. I mean, it's great to see you guys, but in combination with the adventure and the talks and meeting new people, people who listen to our podcasts and other skeptical minded people. Mm-hmm. What a treasure, a treat. What a treat. And we might find some treasure. This is going to be. And Ben, you're still getting over your recent trip. Recent was November. It only seemed like yesterday I saw you. Your trip
it does.
To Australia. And you had so many adventures here. You saw more of Australia than most Australians ever will.
I did. That was because, I had, I'd been wanting to go to Australia since 1981 when I saw Mad Max. To be honest, was the first time I said, you know what? This place is lawless and rough, and people are dying left and right. I want to go there. That's where I need to be. But Max Rokitansky is nowhere to be found. But no, I loved it there. It was so cool, and it was just wonderful meeting you and team and Lara and everybody there. And I just had a great time, and I want to thank you guys again so much for inviting me. It's so great.
Well, it was so good to see you. And of course, Lara Benham, the Secretary of Australian Skeptics, will be joining us on the high seas too. So, even more reason to come along. Oh, I don't know if you knew this, but I had a brief moment in the latest Mad Max movie as one of the starving wretches in one of the places. So there you go.
I'm going to have to rewatch that.
From God to starving wretch. I love it. Yeah. You're a versatile actor, my friend.
I am. I was demoted. No, I watched the movie and I'm blur number 3 on the left, I think I was. But anyway, it was Celestia Ward and Ben Radford, two of my favorite people. Cannot wait to see you. Congratulations on Squaring the Strange. It's ups and downs and changes. We all these things change, but you're still doing it. In fact, we recently recorded an interview which will go out in a couple of weeks on Squaring the Strange. Folks, if you're not listening to Squaring the Strange, I can understand that. You'd rather listen to the Skeptic Zone. But
there's room for more than one.
There's room
favorite
for more
skeptical
than one.
Podcast, yes.
Absolutely. And Celestia, where can people go to find out more about Squaring the Strange?
Well, we do have a website, squaringthestrange.com, and you can check out our episodes on any podcast dispenser. We come out once every 2 weeks, usually drops on Thursday or Friday.
Okay, there's the clue, folks. If you're not listening to Squaring the Strange, you should. Celestia Ward and Ben Radford, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Hallo, ich bin Tim Mendem. Ich bin Herausgeber des australischen Skeptiker-Magazins The Skeptic. Und ich sitze hier in den Skeptics Towers, den riesigen Hauptquartier der australischen Skeptiker. Und ich nehme auf Episoden aus dem Buch 10, die ganze Zeit auf der Skeptic Zone gespielt wird. Also solltet ihr euch auf die Skeptic Zone begeben. Was Skeptic Zone TV ist, sie zum Zuhören, ich und ein paar andere Leute auch. Hi. I'm Tim Mendem, I'm editor of the Australian Skeptics magazine, The Skeptic, and I'm sitting here in Skeptics Towers, the enormous headquarters of the Australian Skeptics, and I'm recording episodes from the Book of Tim, which is played all the time on the Skeptic Zone. So you should get onto the Skeptic Zone, which is skepticzone.tv, for you to listen to me and a few other people as well.
It's time for Psychic Penny's Zodiac, a real horror scope.
Welcome back, seeker of 20-dimensional understanding. Welcome to the chemical-free chambers of Psychic Penny. Through my contacts at the Galactic Federation, I can see into the multi-dimensions of the quantum beyond the universe. And with my mystical insights, I am now the interdimensional #1 astrologer in the universe. You just have to cross my palm with real Canadian maple syrup and prepare for your personalized horoscope reading. And this week, we look at the star signs of Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now for Sagittarius. Mars rules your life this month, which is why you keep running to the supermarket to buy some more of that chocolatey goodness. Imagine if there were a planet called Kit Kat. As for myself, I was born under the sign of a roast duck, which explains a lot. Capricorn. Don't let negative people get you down. It's much better if it's positive people getting you down, as they're always making you feel good about it somehow. Being a Capricorn, your lucky goat is only kidding when it says it's lucky. And not only that, you'd be very lucky to find a talking goat. Aquarius. At times, you wished you lived in the past. And if you find yourself there, you could make a fortune predicting the future, which would be the past for you. But in the past, as you look to the future that you already know, as it was in past at a future date. I think I sense the stars recommend you write a movie script. Pisces. People born under your sign are true skeptics and never listen to horoscopes, which means you must have been born under a different sign. I think it's time you have a word with your mother. Now, your lucky year will be 2093, since you'll be lucky to see it. Now I sense the stoichiometry spirits are whispering to me that it's time to say goodbye. May your journey not be filled with magical magnitude moments, but instead just the right amount of scintillating, natural, GMO-free fun. Until our paths cross again, keep your differentiable manifestation aura sparkling and your sense of humor intact. Psychic Penny now must rest.
There are many psychics and channelers who claim they are in contact with the Galactic Federation, but we have uncovered the truth. The Adventures of Psychic Penny and the Galactic Federation, Series 1. A daring cosmic space adventure starring Richard Saunders, Kat MacLeod, Lara Benham, Maynard, Kathy Reitmeyer, and Adrian Hill as Psychic Penny. Search for The Adventures of Psychic Penny. it's time once again to go back to the archives at Trove and other digital archives from around the world, where we look at and look up and look through and look into items of interest to skeptics. And people who know me know that I like the good old-fashioned skepticism, the stuff that got me interested originally in the 1970s, the 1980s, and so on. I'm talking about ghosts and UFOs and spoon-bending and psychics and ESP, predicting the future, that sort of thing. And cryptozoology, with a shout-out to Ben Radford. Yes, cryptozoology, and specifically, when I think about the early days, I think of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. But of course, there are many other cryptids reportedly out there. So today we're going to look through some of the references I have to a man who died only a couple of years ago, Australia's famed cryptozoologist Rex Gilroy. Now, I mentioned Rex in episode 759 on the 23rd of April 2023, just after he died, and I read a few references about him over the years. And indeed, if you go back to episode 291 from May 2014, Maynard actually interviewed Rex Gilroy at a paranormal event. What was it? I think it was a ghost thing or something like that. Nevertheless, I have lots of clippings of Rex because he was such a colourful character. He's the man who had a huge collection of huge footprints, supposedly from Bigfoot-like creatures and big cats. And these big prints were big indeed. So big that they were actually, to be blunt, farcical. Anyway, let's see what some of the newspapers had to say about Rex Gilroy, Australia's famed yowie and monster hunter. And we start with the Age newspaper, dated the 24th of July 1979. Bushwalkers say they saw yowie. Sydney. A group of bushwalkers claim to have sighted the mysterious figure, the yowie, in the Blue Mountains area at the weekend. The 8 people, led by the founder of the Australian Yowie Research Centre, Mr. Rex Gilroy, say they made the sighting in bushland at the base of Mount York. So the founder of the Australia Yowie Research Centre saw a yowie. How about that? The party, with video equipment, cameras and plaster of Paris to take moulds of the giant footprints, claimed to have seen yet more evidence to justify the existence of the creature. "We saw a lot of trees first that had been broken in half," said Mr. Noel Udler. "We followed a noise for a couple of hours and then saw a shape of a very tall thing through the bushes. I am convinced now it was a yowie, and I'll be going back to have another look." Mr. Gilroy, who says he first spotted the yowie in 1970, says he has received more than 3,000 sightings of the creature, which he is convinced is similar to America's Bigfoot and the abominable snowman. Yes, I always thought that the yowie was invented because people in Australia were just jealous that somewhere else in the world would have a mysterious ape-like creature running around. Now, a couple of years later, and this is actually from Canada. Hello, Adrian. Hello, Kat. Hello, Brenda. And this is in the Citizen from Ottawa, dated the 16th of September 1976. Now, the yowie? Bigfoot has a cousin in Australian mountains. Canberra, Reuter. From the land that produced the duck-billed platypus, the egg-laying mammal, to say nothing of the Tasmanian devil or the numbat, comes the yowie, an Antipodean cousin to the legendary Canadian Bigfoot. Canadian, not the American Bigfoot, not from Washington, no, not from Oregon, no, Canada. And just as Bigfoot has a penchant for periodically reasserting itself on the public by leaving a footprint in a remote area, the Australian yowie is becoming an unabashed headline grabber. The similarities don't end there. He, or perhaps she, is reputed to be similar in structure to Bigfoot, of much the same appearance and with the same predilection for cavorting in the snow. Oh yes, and before you say anything, Australia gets lots of snow every year. Just depends on where you are. One of Australia's most respected naturalists insists the yowie is not a myth. It is alive and well and merely living in seclusion. Rex Gilroy, director of the Mount York National History Museum, says the yowie, the Aboriginal word for, quote, great hairy man, end quote, has been the subject of 3,000 reported sightings dating back as far as 1795. The yowie lumbered back into the headlines recently with the discovery of strange footprints in the snow near the town of Kiandra in the Snowy Mountains southwest of here. And the Snowy Mountains is a mountain range in the southern part of New South Wales and into Victoria, and you can guess why they call them the Snowy Mountains. Lots of skiing resorts down there. The prints were definite in outline and impressive in size and shape. The owner was apparently three-toed and of giant proportions. Not even an ape-like figure captured on film from a safe distance was available to fuel the speculation. Yet the lack of evidence, no matter how flimsy, has failed to shake Gilroy's faith in the existence of the creature, which, he says, is featured extensively in Aboriginal folklore. Gilroy says the yowie grows to about 8 feet tall, is covered from head to foot in long dark hair, if a mountain dweller, and short hair, if a native of the lower altitudes. It is stooped and walks on 2 legs with a long, loping gait. The beast is definitely a vegetarian, Gilroy says. It lives on seeds and a type of moist bark which it tears in strips off trees. They sleep in trees, rock overhangings and caves, but always in the most accessible regions and always close to fresh water. The creature, Gilroy says, appears to be a sort of gentle great ape, although the naturalist confesses he has never seen one. Its habits are similar to those of the great ape in that they are very timid and frightened of humans, he says. According to Gilroy's theory, the yowie is a surviving species of pre-Ice Age man-like ape fauna, which evolved on mainland Asia, and of which the Yeti of Abominable Snowman and Bigfoot are also surviving remnants. Skiers see yowie. Immediately the yowie was back in the public eye. Skiers, most of them patrons of the slope of Mount Kosciuszko in the Snowy Mountains, came forward to report similar sightings. The yowie, it was claimed, had either been spotted loping up the side of the mountain, which at 7,314 feet is Australia's tallest, or had left its footprints in generous quantities over the surrounding countryside. The issue gradually became dormant as the hairy creature itself stayed firmly out of the picture. Yes, Bigfoot and yowie are very good at hiding. Now, what do we have here in the pages of the Sun Herald, dated the 13th of March, 1977? Missing link sought in mystery. A mysterious ape-like creature, thought to be a yowie, has been bothering residents on Oxley Island near Taree. And Taree is a city up the coast from Sydney, some distance. Guessing 4 hours drive up the coast, something like that, maybe 5. Families on the island report hearing blood-curdling screams and shrieks at night, and the noises are quite alien to the quiet river island, which relies on dairying for its livelihood. Residents are now convinced that the screams are connected with the sighting of a strange creature by island resident Mrs. Jeff G, or Gee, probably G, G-E-E. Mrs. G looked out her kitchen window recently to see a huge black furry creature standing on the end of their jetty, waving its arms around. I ran to get the binoculars for a close-up view and was sure we had an enormous ape on the wharf, Mrs. G said. Footprints, I was going down to investigate when the telephone rang, and when I returned, the animal had disappeared," she said. Several days later, the family returned from an outing to find their 1,000-gallon water tank had been pushed over at the back door. Her son and some friends found a set of footprints leading across a soft field. The marks were unusual and not like any animal on the island, although some thought it could perhaps have been a bear walking upright. A bear. Yep. Mrs. G said that whatever the animal is thought to have been, people can detect a very strong smell. The island's recent experiences have only come to light when residents heard that naturalist Mr. Rex Gilroy will be visiting Taree and Barrington next month to search for evidence of the yowie. That's convenient. Reports of the beast's activities appear to be most heavily concentrated on the eastern coastal belt of the continent. The word yowie means great hairy man in early Aboriginal folklore. Mr. Gilroy believes the yowie is a surviving remnant of a pre-Ice Age man-like ape, of which the abominable snowman and America's Bigfoot are also surviving relatives, which sounds very much like the report we read before. So I guess that was a stock answer Rex Gilroy would give to press. Now let's go to the year 1979. On the 2nd of October, in the pages of the Age newspaper, a story by Jane Sullivan. New theory on our early links. Australian history, says Mr. Rex Gilroy, does not begin with Captain James what's-his-name. I'll break here and say, well, certainly does not. Australian history, in one form or another, if you're talking about humans, goes back estimated 40, 50,000 years, something like that. Anyway, Mr. Gilroy claims that when Captain Cook sailed into Botany Bay in April 1770, he wasn't discovering anything. He was travelling a very well-worn path. Yes, you probably knew about the Dutch and the Portuguese sailors who wandered into Australian waters well before Cook's time. But did you know about the Chinese, or the Phoenicians, or the Egyptians? According to Mr. Gilroy's theories, a pyramid or a cave in Fitzroy Gardens might be a more fitting monument to our forebears than a Yorkshireman's cottage. Mr. Gilroy, 35, a self-taught naturalist and archaeology enthusiast, has spent 20 years collecting evidence to support his belief about the ancient peoples who he claims sailed in and, in some cases, settled down to mine gold and other minerals. The only people he seems prepared to rule out are men from outer space. He is scornful of Eric von Daniken's theory that some Aboriginal drawings of strange men with circles around their heads represent men in space helmets. That's where the fun starts. The lazy man just drew a circle around a head for a hat, and there's your space helmet, he said. If Captain Cook can't claim the discovery honours, who can? He says there's always the Babylonian admiral who went off to Southeast Asia in 636 BC and disappeared. He might be the same of who turned up on what could be Phoenician carvings near Adelaide in 1931. Go back to 2300 BC and there's Nemhotep, I hope that's pronounced right, the Egyptian explorer who might have strayed down somewhere near the Australian west coast. No doubt risking the helpless mirth of the pharaoh, he produced some wild report about a, quote, vast continent, end quote, where animals carried their young in pouches, and the natives threw a weapon that came back to their hand. Mr. Gilroy says, what a character he was, what a character. Mr. Gilroy favours the ancient Uranus from Mesopotamia. He thinks they might have hung around long enough to knock up a few giant carved stones in the Bathurst region about 10,000 years ago. Relics and artefacts to support Mr. Gilroy's ideas are kept in his two museums, the Mount York National History Museum at Mount Victoria and the Katoomba Nature Display in Katoomba. both in New South Wales. Mr. Gilroy's reputation among scientists probably isn't helped by the fact that he is also a dedicated hunter of the yowie, Australia's answer to the abominable snowman. But we're winning. Many historians are coming around. We may owe our present civilization to a British discovery, but we're getting away from the British Empire attitude to our own Australian character, Mr. Gilroy said. Australian history and world history in future will have to include a lot of things that are going to upset the textbooks, he said. Academics like Dr. Lloyd Robson, reader in history at Melbourne University, are highly sceptical of Mr. Gilroy's theories. What is the evidence? Who says so, and how does he know? Dr. Robson said to all the brief outlines of Mr. Gilroy's ideas. The origins and nature of his evidence would need to be examined by experts. He says it was easy to jump to conclusions. An ancient Greek coin found in Australia, for example, did not mean that an ancient Greek left it there. It could have been left by a collector or one of the many Australian soldiers in Europe and the Middle East during the 2 World Wars. And finally, let's go to the year 1987. On the 13th of October, in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald. And there's a drawing here of a thylacine, otherwise known as a Tasmanian tiger, and what looks to be like a sea creature like a Loch Ness monster and a giant serpent of some description. An Australian monster hunter's dream. The giant sea snake, the Tasmanian tiger, and the moolywonk, our version of Nessie. Skepticism of science fails to fade a madness for monsters, by Peter Fray, rural writer. Australian zoologists who study unknown and often mythical animals have to be a hardy bunch. They have to be adept at handling bad news and its messengers. And the weekend's news from Loch Ness, where the most exhaustive search for the famed monster ended with its leader declaring Nessie a myth, has not stopped them in their tracks. In fact, belief in a host of creatures, including the yowie, the Tasmanian tiger, the moolywonk, marsupial lions and panthers, and a collection of giant sea snakes, wombats and sharks, remains as strong as ever. Mrs. Doris Blindman from Kangaroo Valley said nothing would alter her belief in the district's famed marsupial panther, which she claims to have seen at regular intervals since 1954. I used to say that I'm a nut, but so many people have seen it now that I know it exists, she said. The panther is very black, beautiful and strong, and it has lingering smell and big golden eyes. Mrs. Blindman said a local councillor had recently seen the panther. It regularly visited her property, often leaving its footprints and scent near the house. Mr. Rex Gilroy, a self-taught naturalist and director of the Australian Unknown Animals Investigation Centre at Katoomba, is equally unmoved by the failure to find Nessie. Loch Ness is a big place with plenty of deep water and bays which could be hard to search, he said. There is no reason why a plesiosaur like Nessie could not be surviving in the world's oceans. Mr. Gilroy, 43, is convinced that several animals considered mythical or extinct are in fact living in remote parts of Australia. These include the moolywonk, a plesiosaur similar to Nessie with a long neck, a large body and 2 sets of flippers. It has been spotted several times in the upper reaches of the Hawkesbury River and off the New South Wales and Queensland coasts. And the Hawkesbury River is a major river just north of Sydney, so I'm surprised more people haven't reported this thing. The yowie, a shy, man-like ape, technically known as the Gigantopithecus. Oh, really? According to Mr. Gilroy, yowies inhabited Australia before the Aborigines and still survive in dense, inaccessible scrub in several states. The Tasmanian tiger, a marsupial with a striped rear half. The last tiger died in Hobart Zoo in 1934, but since then there have been numerous sightings, mainly in Tasmania and southwest Western Australia. the marsupial lion or panther. This creature, which once roamed many parts of Australia, is believed to exist in several parts of New South Wales, including Kangaroo Valley. Giant sea snakes, sharks and wombats. Such creatures have been spotted in most parts of Australia. The science community remains unmoved. Dr. Mike Archer. Oh, big shout out to Mike. I know I've known Dr. Mike Archer for, must be pushing 40 years. Dr. Mike Archer, an associate professor of zoology at the University of New South Wales, said most mythical creatures were created by wish fulfillment and an over-imaginative mind. Well, there we go. A look through just some of the few references I have found concerning the late Rex Gilroy. And as you can tell by those clippings, he really was a character. I mean, really. As much as I don't think he was, in one sense, he wasn't sincere or genuine. I think he was just having a great life, running around the outback, running around the mountains, and coming back with enormous plaster casts. A real character. But, yeah, I don't think his conclusions or thoughts or theories really stand up to scrutiny. Yes, Rex Gilroy is no longer with us, but his history, his impact on society is, in so much that we can look it up in the various newspaper archives, because when you go there, especially to Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, and you type in your search, well, you never know what strange creatures you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to all those wonderful people who contribute, who are sponsors of the show, sponsors of Science and Reason by PayPal or Patreon, and you can do that at skepticzone.tv. Now here's an update on the project that's taken up most of my time over the last week, even on the train. Even on the many hours on the train I was working on this project. This is the upscaling, the restoration of the documentary James Randi in Australia from 1980. You may recall the only version known to exist was recorded off the TV onto a VCR and was watchable. And that's about all you could say for it. It was watchable. It was sort of okay to watch. But now, thanks to listener Glenn Brady and then considerable amount of time by me since doing things like removing dust and dirt and remixing the audio, it's very watchable now and almost ready to be sprung on the world. In fact, I anticipate by the time the next episode of the Skeptic Zone comes out, it should be online. If you're curious, you can always keep an eye on the Australian Skeptics official YouTube channel. But next week, I'm sure I'll be able to give you the direct link. And I discovered that restoring the video has been a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's okay because once I decided to remove some very bad scratches and hair and dirt from the film in one section, well, I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. I thought, now I've done this section, I better do the whole film. And indeed, that means looking at 66,000 individual frames. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it, and I think James Randi and Dick Smith, who produced the video, deserve nothing less. Coming up on next week's show, in the Trove segment, we're going to look at reports of Project Alpha. And this is the time in the early 80s where James Randi sent in 2 young magicians to fool the parapsychologists. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
All right,
Thanks
thanks
for indulging me.
I'm going to hit stop.
No, of course.
Richard, do not hang up because the tracks have
Do
to
not hang up.
Hello to everybody who listens after the show, after the music. This is the dice game or the after party. This is where I roll a 10-sided die. Usually it's a 10-sided die. Nice, easy number to remember. 4 times. Yes, 4 times. 2, 3, 4. I'm just writing it down. And I'm going to predict in advance what numbers are going to come up. And you can predict too. It's a test of your psychic ability, of course. Well, no, not really, but we can all have a bit of fun. So the first roll, I'm going to predict a 4. The second roll, I'll predict a 6. The third roll, I'll predict an 8. And the fourth roll, I'll predict 10. 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 rolls. Here we go. First roll. 10. Well, I got the right number in the wrong spot. Okay, second roll. 2. Well, they're even so far. Okay, third roll. 7. And a big shout out to Greg Doré, who gave me this dice rolling contraption. And the last roll, or the supplementary, 9. Not very good this week. No display of psychic power, I'm afraid. Today's winning numbers: 10, 2, 7, and 9.